We like to think of our brains as highly advanced computers. We assume that when we face a decision, we gather the available data, weigh the variables, and output the most mathematically optimal choice. Cognitive psychologists call this propositional thought. It is the kind of logic your laptop uses, moving abstract symbols around to solve equations and calculate exact probabilities. But human beings rarely think like processors. We are, at our core, storytellers. We rely heavily on what psychologists term narrative thought. Instead of running the numbers, we imagine vivid scenarios and let those mental movies guide our choices. This chart shows the per-mile fatality data of driving an automobile compared to flying in a commercial airplane. The math is completely unambiguous. Mile for mile, traveling in a car is vastly deadlier than boarding a flight. Yet millions of people feel far more anxiety during a smooth takeoff than they do merging onto a busy highway. A plane crash is a terrifying event that commands national news. That highly salient, vivid imagery hijacks our risk assessment, causing our brains to reject the actual data and fear the safer option. That preference for a compelling narrative over cold statistics regularly sabotages our ability to navigate much higher stakes, heavily influencing how we evaluate medical treatments, political policies, and our life savings. Let's test how easily a story can override a statistic. Imagine a hypothetical person named Henry. Henry is deeply progressive, politically active, and identifies as a fierce feminist. Based on that brief description, guess his profession. Is Henry a truck driver or an Ivy League classics professor? Look at this visualization. The population of truck drivers in the United States numbers in the millions. Meanwhile, the pool of working Ivy League classics professors is a microscopic speck. This illustrates the base rate fallacy. Even if rare, there are significantly more feminist truck drivers. But most people immediately guess professor. We throw away the guaranteed mathematical probability because the description of Henry matches our mental stereotype of an academic. The character sketch wins. We also let language completely rewrite our math. Imagine a new disease outbreak is expected to kill 600 people, and you have to choose between two medical responses. Program A guarantees that exactly 200 people will be saved. Program B guarantees that exactly 400 people will die. Which do you choose? When researchers present this exact problem, people overwhelmingly choose Program A. But if you do the subtraction, the outcomes are identical. Saving 200 out of 600 means 400 die. This is the framing effect. The brain ignores the raw numbers and reacts entirely to the phrasing. We reflexively gravitate toward the story of saving lives and recoil from the story of letting people die. To understand why we rely on these illogical mental shortcuts, imagine walking down a dark alleyway at night and seeing a shadowy figure holding a large stick step into your path. A purely mathematical brain would calculate the local crime rate, assess the base rate of nighttime softball games, and conclude you are probably safe. But a brain wired for narrative jumps straight to the worst-case scenario and triggers the instinct to run. Ignoring the math in that moment is a feature, not a bug. It is an evolutionary shortcut engineered to keep our ancestors alive in an environment where assuming the worst was the safest bet. But that ancient survival hardware misfires constantly in the modern financial world. Consider a simple wager. We flip a coin. If it lands on heads, I hand you $100. If it lands on tails, you hand me $100. Through the lens of propositional thought, the expected value of this game is exactly zero. To a computer, it is a perfectly neutral bet. Yet almost no human being will actually accept that wager, thanks to a cognitive bias known as loss aversion. This graph models the psychological utility of money. Notice how the slope for financial losses drops much steeper than the slope for financial gains. The psychological pain of losing $100 registers as significantly sharper than the joy of gaining that exact amount. The mathematician Daniel Bernoulli recognized this psychological asymmetry regarding money centuries ago, proving that this skewed valuation is a deeply ingrained human trait. Today, entire institutions are specifically designed to exploit that ancient storytelling hardware. From the flashing payouts of a casino floor to the volatile swings of the stock market, they weaponize our own cognitive biases against us. We cannot simply delete the evolutionary wiring that kept our ancestors alive, but by recognizing our instinctual bias toward a compelling story, we can pause, override the narrative, and let the math guide our actual decisions.